Title of my message is, what do you value? And you guys already know that because you should all have a bulletin in your hands, right? But the thing is that I wondered if you really thought about the question and if an answer popped up in your head. And even if an answer didn't pop up in your head when you read that, I want you to just take a moment right now and open up your bulletin to the order of service. And there's some blank space right there, and you can see the title right at the bottom, what do you value? And write down whatever pops into your head, because I really want it to be the first thing that pops up for you. So if you write down your answer, we'll just take a moment to do that. Don't make it hard. All right. Today we're going to explore these answers that you have written down, and we're going to see if your answer perhaps changes from now until the time at the end of my message. But first, of course, we have to affirm our statements of truth together. So if you would join me in saying, I am a child of God. I am deserving of good in my life. I am accepting my good now. Thank you so much. Well, when I think of the value of something, I first must evaluate it, right? I had tried to decide what kind of value I'm going to give something, and if I'm even going to give it any value. You know, we have things that pop into our head, and we think, throw it off to the side. We don't even give it any attention. But other things we really think about, and we think, wow, that is important, or maybe I do need to give it more attention. But how much value we give something depends on our own state of mind and how we evaluate it. So to evaluate means to determine the value, to determine or set the value or amount of, to appraise or to evaluate property, to judge or determine the significance, worth, or quality of, to assess, to evaluate the results of an experiment. And that should say dictionary.com. I forgot the zero. PowerPoint doesn't do, well, they probably do, but I don't know how. But anyway, when I began to do this message and that question popped up into my head, I was really bouncing around with what the answer was for me. Probably like some of you when I asked you to write down an answer. And it's funny how thinking about this over a period of time, the answer changed for me off and on. And I kept thinking about what is it that I really value. And during that time, I realized I was engaging the power of wisdom. Because you see, when we value something, we have to discern, you know, whether we value it or not, or how we value it. So that power of wisdom came into play. And Charles Fulmer gives us a really great quote from Talks on Truth about wisdom. When you disentangle the I am from the thinking faculty, you take control of the thinking and direct its power according to your wisdom. But wisdom is of spirit. There is a spirit in man, and the breath of the Almighty giveth them understanding, which is from Job 32:8. The thing is, what is the I am? Everybody should be able to answer this.
I am.
What is the I am?
God.
The Christ, God, that connection with God. It's that direct connection. And this is the place where we try to live from every day, isn't it? From that Christ within, we try to keep that connection going with everything that we do throughout the day. And wisdom comes from that clear understanding of that truth. And it is innate in each of us, believe it or not, to be able to discern for ourselves what we believe and what we value in life when we're using that power of wisdom. However, what we end up doing sometimes is we perceive things to be stumbling blocks in our lives, don't we? Yeah. And when we get into that idea of the stumbling blocks, we start letting that determine, you know, what we're going to value and where we're going with it, right? And the stumbling blocks can seem really real, and they can seem more important to us than anything else in our lives at the time, right? But in truth, we know that those stumbling blocks are only in our small m mind. They are not coming from the divine. They are coming from our own thoughts and how we are perceiving things to be and what kind of value we're putting on those stumbling blocks. But when we build up these stumbling blocks in our minds, what we're doing is we're using the power of wisdom in a negative sense. You know, we're veering our thoughts into that negativity. It is an extreme false use of judgment, of the power of judgment, which is also wisdom. Now, we think of judgment as being something that somebody does, like I'm judging you. But judgment is also that power of wisdom when it's on the other side of the continuum. So if you're using it from that Christ, the I am, you're going to have a whole different perspective and a whole different view than if you're using it from that negative sense, that place of judgment, right? And what happens with these stumbling blocks when we're using it from the place of judgment is we're looking at like their limitations or that they are problems in our lives. And what does that do? It just creates chaos, doesn't it? Just creates more chaos and more chaos because we're living from that place. And pretty soon, we're overusing that thinking ability of the small m mind and just distorting our whole life. That's what happens. And when we stop, you know, because we end up in this frenzy where that's the only thoughts we're having, and then we have to stop. But before we stop, what usually happens is we get to this place of controlling and demanding and being overprotective and thinking that whatever we value is more important than anything else anybody else's values. We get like that, don't we? Yeah, we really put it out there like, hey, you know, that's important. You shouldn't be thinking like that. You know, we were watching that show, What Would You Do, the other night, you know? And even some of the things in that remind me of some people thinking what they value is more important than somebody else's, what they value. And I'm not saying the behavior's right. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying, the minute we start in that judgment mode, whether we think it's for the good or not, we've got to stop and take a breath. Because we're still going to that extreme, that other extreme. We're not coming from that spiritual I am at that point. And what happens when we do that, when we live from that place, is we start getting to the place where we don't put value in anything. Nothing becomes valuable to us because we can't see the value for what it truly is. Does that make sense? Well, Fillmore gives us this little quote, which I thought was perfect for this. It is of no practical value to a man to know that the world has journeyed around the sun 6,000 or 6 million years since it was formed. The important thing is to know where man stands in relation to the creative law. Are we zigzagging through life with that creative law, just moving day to day and saying what will come, what will come, what may? Are we saying that? Are we just going que sera, what will be, will be? Or are we listening to the divine creative law, which is a whole different thing? Because we know the divine creative law is from what? God. That's right, it's from God. And thoughts do come to us every day. They bounce in and out of our heads. They're bouncing in and out of your heads right now. You're trying to focus on what I'm saying, but I know it happens. And we move through our activities and the duties that we have to do and what we're trying to do. And we move through, and sometimes that small m mind kind of takes over, you know? And it's not coming from that place of divine mind, from God. And sometimes those thoughts or ideas are instinctual. You know, they're from our instincts. They just happen. And we think, whoa, that's really cool. Or something comes into our mind and we follow that guidance, and what we're doing is following our instincts, aren't we? Yes. But what also can happen is that we can also end up with our thoughts working as patterns. Anybody ever do anything just out of a pattern? Yes. Yeah. I mean, most people get up in the morning, and what do? Go in the bathroom, use the restroom, wash their face, brush their teeth, take a shower, go get dressed or not, go get your breakfast or whatever. You have a pattern that you follow. And that's okay, because it helps us be more efficient. It helps us get things accomplished. But we also have these instinctual things. You know, we wake up in the morning and we think, I want to wear something yellow because I'm in this sunshiny mood and I want to just keep that going all day. That's our instincts. You know, that's our natural sense of who we are coming forth. And how many people follow that guidance? Don't you go to your closet sometimes and think, or maybe the night before you decide you're going to wear something, but then you go the next morning and look at it and go, why am I going to wear that? I want to wear something else. So you're following that guidance. And it can be that simple. But what happens is that sometimes those habits and instincts get intertwined and we get kind of messed up. Because like, for example, if you get up in the morning and you're getting ready for work and you're ready to go, and you do this pattern, you know, like for example, this morning I forgot my phone because I usually unplug my phone and stick it in my purse. I didn't do that this morning. I don't know why. But we have these patterns we do before we go to work and we follow them. But say we get to the door and we go, whoa, I'm forgetting something. Something is speaking to me and I'm forgetting something. And you think for a minute and you think, oh, it'll come to me later. I'm just going to keep on forging on. But later you find out that you did forget something, like your phone. And I was thinking this morning when I got here to church and I realized I forgot my phone, I thought, I sure hope nobody texts me or calls and says something that they want us to share at church this morning, because that happens sometimes. But I just, you know, pray about it and let it go to the universe. But the other thing that can happen is if we approach this from this place of instinct and this place of following wisdom and this place of putting value to what thoughts are coming into us and through us, then we're going to approach this scenario a whole lot different. We get all ready for work. We're following our habits. We're doing what we need to. But we get to that place of thinking, oh, I've forgotten something. So what do? We stop for a moment. We stop and we affirm this. My mind is clear and free, and I know exactly what I need. And when you do that, take a moment after you affirm. Don't just say, oh, okay, where is it? What am I supposed to do? No. Take a moment and turn within to that presence of God, to that I am, to what is within us that we are trying to live from. Take a moment and close your eyes and just breathe in that knowing. And turn back on that power of faith that is within you, because that's important. And when you do that, that Christ's presence will guide you. And you will open your eyes and you'll go straight to that thing and you'll find that thing that you were supposed to remember or do or whatever it is. And when that happens, again, don't just forge forth, you know, like, hey, yeah, it works. No, stop for a minute and fill up with gratitude and say, thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you, universe. Thank you for coming forth and bringing forth what I need. And when we do that, we're creating ourselves a habit that is an instinctual habit that is instinct within us to live from that place, and it'll change everything in your life. Because once you start doing that, and doing that, and doing that, it becomes natural, doesn't it? It just becomes a part of your everyday living. You know, how many times did your parents, or how many times of those of you that are parents, had to tell your kids, how many times did you have to tell them to go brush their teeth? Brush their teeth in the morning before school. Brush their teeth before bed. We had to tell them that over and over. And it was so long ago for me that it seems like, you know, that was like I needed to have it recorded and just push the button, right? Well, it's the same thing for us. We know that we need to brush our teeth, so we go brush our teeth. It's instinctual, more than a habit. But the same thing happens when we need to turn within to that Christ presence. We need to stop and take that breath and realize that there's more to living than just that. And what happens in that moment is we're giving value to prayer and meditation in our lives. We're giving value to turning within to the Christ within us. That switches your whole life. It will switch your whole life. And everything that we wish for in our lives and every place that we want to live from in our lives will come forth because we've changed our perspective. But sometimes it's hard to remember to do that in our hurried up life, isn't it? So we just have to keep practicing. We have to practice at every opportunity to take that breath and turn within to the Christ presence. Do it with me right now. Everybody just close your eyes for a moment. And take a breath and turn within to that Christ presence and feel that energy within you. yes. And open your eyes. And you see, then you turn on that Christ within you, that I am that we need to disconnect from the small m mind and connect to the divine mind in that moment. And that's when wisdom kicks into gear from that place of being able to be in alignment with what is true. Because we don't want to be in that place of judging, do we? No. But we are supposed to look at ourselves, and if you will, judge ourselves, aren't we? Which I like to call that self-awareness or self-evaluation, which leads us to the definition for self-evaluation. Self-evaluation is what you think about yourself. It is an individual's assessment of himself, his possibilities, qualities, and his place among other people. Think about that for a minute. How many of you have taken time to evaluate your own possibilities? How many of you have taken time to evaluate your own qualities? How many of you have taken time to think about what you think about you? Because that's huge. That self-evaluation is giving value to things within you. And when we look at doing things from a different place in our daily lives, we have to know who we are. We have to know what are our possibilities. We have to be able to see, I have the quality of being organized and being that person that goes forth to help organize. Whatever it is, you have to be able to come into alignment with that. And sometimes we take that again to that extreme of not being centered on the Christ, and we start judging ourselves, and we start seeing them as bad behaviors, or we see them as things we need to react to. Or sometimes even when we respond, to something, it comes off curt. It comes off from the wrong mode because our minds are not aligned with divine mind. It's coming from our small m mind, right? But our self-evaluation doesn't need to be that place of beating ourselves up. We don't need to reinforce anything that we're thinking in the small m mind as negative. We need to celebrate and expand on the things that we know are positive about ourselves. Because that's how we get back to that Christ self and being back into that place of the I am. And it's important. It's important to be living and behaving from that place. And when we do that, what we'll be able to do is, again, place value on the things that are important in our lives, and we will be living for the highest good, not only for ourselves, but for everyone. Because we no longer will be living from that place of judgment and negativity over here. We'll be able to say, I behold the Christ in you. Now I forgot your name, the new person. Renee. She has a namaste symbol on her necklace, which is, I behold the Christ in you. And if you want to live from that place, it's good to remind yourself from that place of being good for all, that we are all here expressing as the Christ, as that I am. So I have a question. What do you value? What did you put on for your answer on your bulletin? Anybody want to share? Yes, Pat?
My health and my relationship with God, myself.
Okay. Anybody else want to share? What? Life. Janelle?
I put babies, friends, car, and apartment.
There you go. BJ, I saw your hand up.
Inner peace.
Very good.
My family.
Okay. Dee Dee? Love. Russell?
My wife and son.
There you go. So some people might, oh, you got one?
Laughter.
Laughter, there you go. Teresa?
I did two. I put family and wisdom.
Very good. Wisdom, perfect for today.
Friendship.
Veronica?
Friendship.
Friendship. So some of you tapped on some of the answers I wrote down because, I said, was your answers money? Was it time? Was it God? And maybe you put down your spouse or partner. Maybe you put down your family, your friends, your pets. But the thing is, have you ever thought about the fact that what you value reflects something about you? Yeah. And the next question would be, what do you think about what you wrote down reflects about you? What does that reflect back to you? And I don't need to know the answer because I'm not here to judge anyone. But it's all about self-evaluation. It's about seeing for yourself what it is that you wrote down is important and what kind of value you're giving to that thing or person or place. And maybe some of you wrote down something else other than, I know somebody said love and peace and laughter. And I wrote some here: faith, love, wisdom, strength, joy, happiness, life, oneness. And of course, those are the 12 powers across that symbol that I like to use as the oneness of God. But what I found for myself when I was reflecting on this question throughout those couple of weeks was that so many things that I would think that I valued, when I really thought about how that reflects in my everyday life, I wasn't really showing value to them. You know, we write down something, but are we really honoring and saying that that is important in my life? Are we putting the value to it that we need to put to it? If we're going to claim it for ourselves, then we need to put the value to it, right? And that means that every day we live from that aspect. We live from that place. And I know that we talk about living from that Christ presence. And so it all circles back, doesn't it? If we start listing all these things and we change, like me, for 2 weeks I changed my answer to this thing several times. And every time it seemed like I was circling back because I kept feeling like there was a better answer, like there was something more, that there was something coming forth from within me to be the best answer. And I know that when we tap value to things, sometimes our values change. I know several people that have been in a, you know, this has been over the years, I've known several people that have had house fires. And you know, they lost all their family treasures, they lost, one person lost their pet, I mean, they've lost all their furniture, their clothing, their jewelry. And the thing is that the people that I've talked to always come back and say, all that stuff seemed important until it was gone. And then I realized the most important thing is that we all lived, that we didn't, no one burned in the house fire. You know, that we came away from it with a new sense of purpose and a new place in life. I know for me, there was a time that I valued something, and it sounds really silly, but I had a flash drive, you know, the little jump drive that you put in your computer that you put all your files on. I had one in seminary that I had put all, because I was a youth ed director at Unity Village, and I had all this curriculum and all these activities on that jump drive. I had some of my seminary papers on that jump drive, and that jump drive crashed. It wouldn't open anymore. Yeah, they'll do that. So I sent it off, I found a company, sent it off, and they wanted $400 to reclaim the information. And at the time, I just couldn't justify that $400 for that because, like I said, we were both in seminary, you know, 3 kids, and, you know, it just wasn't going to work. So what happened was the registrar from seminary, she wanted us to put together a portfolio with all of our final papers. Well, I was missing some. And she was very kind about it. She said, that's okay, don't worry about the ones that you lost. But what she ended up doing when she got my portfolio is she contacted those professors and got copies of my papers and added them to my portfolio for me. So I got a blessing out of the deal. The other thing that happened was because I was using a computer at Unity Village and they're on a mainframe, the IT department retrieved some of my youth ed stuff that was on that mainframe, and I got blessed with that. But you know what? At the time that all this was happening to me, I felt really blessed, and I really felt like, you know, I had gotten these valuable things back in my life. But now they don't mean a thing to me because I never even use them, you know? So it's kind of interesting to see what you value at one point might not be what you value later in life. And it, you know, not that I wasn't grateful or anything, I am, but it's just the importance that we put on things we need to realize can be ever changing. Because things change, right? We all know that. You know, things are changing constantly, and we have to be willing to change with that. But I do think that sometimes we have to look at the fact that even though our what is valuable to us can change, we still have to go back to that self-reflection and see what is valuable within us, valuable about us, valuable from that aspect of the Christ within, and try to define that for ourselves. And that's what that handout is for that I gave you today. It's a prayer from Myrtle Fillmore, or a book, yeah, this is it. This is the beginning. From her book, How to Let God Help You. And so it says, "Then shall you awake in the likeness of spirit, and behold in righteousness the face of truth. Then shall the genesis of your new heavenly and earthly satisfaction read, in the beginning love, God, and life created the thoughts that people my world. Peace flows through it as a river of glory, and gladness roof its skies. Joy and health are the morning and evening stars. Willing service is the moon that follows after the great sun of righteousness. Understanding it is the soil where springs forth the beauty of action. The angel that guards the Eden of my world is purity of thought. My love of life is absolute knowledge of truth." And then the last line is, "This is your world, created by the mind that was in Christ Jesus." And you know that mind that was in Christ Jesus is the same mind that is in each and every one of us. And when we come from that place, when we release all those thoughts that are from our small m mind, we open up this vast portal to God, and all of our answers will come forth, and it will create this vastness that our soul longs for. And all that there is in the universe is there for all of us to receive. All the things that we find important will no longer hold the same value, believe it or not, because they become the same. And from that aspect, we can value all things and all people and all ideas from that place of the Christ within. Does that make sense? Yes. And it's this perspective is how God sees us. That was the last line. We are each as valuable as the next. All that we are and ever could be is equal to all that everyone else is or could be. And so the opportunities become endless for us when we're in there. The plethora of all the good that is out there in the universe comes rushing forth to serve not only us, but everyone for the highest good. That's powerful. And as we hold what is valuable, what we held as valuable last year is no longer valuable to us. And we'll find new things to value, and we'll be able to put everything into perspective, and we will place the right value on what we know is important to us. I like to think about this. Our children, before they were ever even an idea in our head, were not valuable to us until the day we held them in our arms. Our parents were not valuable to us when we were teenagers, but when they became grandparents, it was a whole other thing. Or when we sat with them while they made their transition, it changed everything, didn't it? Their value insurmountably increased when their body was no longer here on this earth, right? The good news is that we can at any time, at any moment, ebb and flow with life, and in that flow, we can move toward that better understanding of what we really and truly want to put value on in our lives. Now, this evaluation of our priorities will instinctively come forth for us and when we take time to pray and meditate. When we take that breath and turn within to that presence of God. When we take that breath and turn into that Christ presence, that I am. And it will change everything. It will change everything. And at that point, because we align with God, with that I am that is within us, we will be able to easily affirm together for ourselves, and I'd like for you to say it with me, I am valuable. Thank you for being here today. God bless you.